Hey friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Shannon, and today we are going to continue with a little series that I've been doing where I blame some of my book purchases for factors other than myself. Now, disclaimer, this is all in good fun. I am perfectly responsible and well aware of my financial decisions, and so this is just having a little fun at excuses I use to purchase books, whether it's the title made me buy it, or the cover made me buy it, or in today's case, the movie made me buy it. So I have about 10 books here where I love the movies. And when I watched these movies, whether it was in childhood or adulthood, I actually had no idea at the time that they were based upon books. And when I discovered that they were based upon books, I rectified the situation so that I could read the book of the movie that I love so much. I have two sort of sections here, movies that I loved as a kid, and then some that I enjoy as an adult. So let's start with the movies that I loved when I was a kid. And I was an 80s kid, so I was born in 79. I was a kid in the 80s. And if you were an 80s kid, you loved The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride by William Goldman. So this was published in 1973, and this is a fantasy adventure following Westley, a poor farm boy who sets out to rescue his true love, Princess Buttercup, after she is kidnapped by a trio of outlaws and later forced to marry the evil Prince Humperdinck. Along the way, Westley faces challenges such as a giant, a master swordsman, and a deadly fire swamp. He also makes some allies, overcomes impossible odds, and fights for true love. My understanding is that the novel has an odd structure to it in that it's supposedly framed as an abridgment of a fictional book by S. Morgenstern, who doesn't actually exist. Now, the film is from 1987, and it is a classic. It is a classic film, and don't fight me on this because you know that it is. We have Carrie Elways, Robin Wright, Andre the Giant. He's just so fantastic. I love Andre the Giant in this movie. Billy Crystal, Mandy Patinkin, Chris Sarandon, and Fred Savage. If you were a kid in the 80s, you loved Fred Savage from The Wonder Years. And the movie was directed and produced by Rob Reiner. And this is my favorite childhood movie, and it has some of the most classic quotes that we are still, well, I'm still quoting today. You've got inconceivable, as you wish, have fun storming the castle, he's only mostly dead, and my personal favorite, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. Now, I don't know if any of those quotations are actually in this book. From what I understand, there was a lot of ad-libbing going on when they made the movie. So I'm not holding out hope that my favorite quotes are actually in this book. But when I was a kid, I had no idea that there was a book. So I purchased it, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. Next, we have The Neverending Story by Michael Ende, or Ende. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And this was published in 1979, so the year I was born, in Germany. And the English translation by Ralph Mannheim was published in 1983. And this is a fantasy story following Sebastien, who discovers a magical book. And as he reads, he becomes immersed in the world of fantastic, which is being destroyed by a force called the Nothing. We also follow a young warrior named Atreyu on a quest to save the childlike empress and to stop the Nothing. This explores themes of escapism, identity, and the power of storytelling. Now, the film was from 1984, and unfortunately, nobody in the cast really sticks out for me. So from what I understand, the movie was produced by a German company, although for English-speaking audiences. So Hollywood didn't actually make this movie, which I had no idea. And so maybe that's why nobody in the cast stands out, because they weren't using big-name Hollywood actors. Funny thing is, I'm not exactly sure why I have such nostalgia for this movie, because if you've seen it, it's really kind of sad and traumatizing. Bastian's trying to come to terms with his mother's death. His father is emotionally unavailable, and the world of Fantastic is lonely and disjointed. And y'all, I am still traumatized from Artax and the Swamp of Sadness. If you know, you know. I have no idea if any of that is in this book, but I still, to this day, cannot get over Artax and the Swamp of Sadness. Again, as a kid, I wouldn't have known that this was based on a book. So I have the book. I do plan on reading it, and we'll see if I like the book as much as I loved the movie as a kid. Next, I have Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, The Magical Car by Ian Fleming. Yes, that Ian Fleming of James Bond fame wrote a children's book? Who'da thunk? So this book was published in 1964, and it is a children's adventure story about the eccentric Potts family and their magical car. Karaticus Potts restores an old race car that turns out to have magical abilities. It can fly, float, think for itself. Potts and his children, Jeremy and Jemima, embark on thrilling adventures, including foiling a gang of criminals. It's lighthearted and whimsical, and I was actually surprised that Ian Fleming wrote it. So the musical is from 1968, and I found out that Roald Dahl was actually one of the screenwriters. The movie stars Dick Van Dyke, Sally Ann Howes, and Lionel Jeffries. And my favorite songs are Toot Sweets, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and Choochie Face. So if you've seen this movie, you know these songs. And honestly, I kid you not, those three songs live rent-free in my head, like all the time, especially Choochie Face. No idea why. So the movie is just so much fun and perfect for kids. You've got adventures, a nutty grandpa, a flying car, an evil baron, and a song in a candy factory. Does this movie resemble the book in any way? No idea. Don't even care. If you've seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you will note that there are similarities to another beloved movie that came out at the same time, Mary Poppins. Both were based on a beloved children's book. Both were set in 1910s England. Both starred Dick Van Dyke. From what I understand, they tried to get Julie Andrews, but she turned it down. And both have two cute kids, and also have the same songwriters and composer, and even some similar choreography. If you note in Mary Poppins, the chimney sweeps on the roof, and then in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the candy makers in the candy factory. I actually never put those two together when I was a kid, but now I'm like, okay, I see what y'all did there. Again, as a kid, I wouldn't have known that there was a book. I don't ever remember my parents reading this to me when I was a kid. I'm looking forward to reading this children's book and seeing how it stacks up to the movie, which I'm sure the movie is nothing like this book, but we'll see. Okay, so this next one might be a little bit of a surprise, because you're thinking, why would a kid be watching this movie? Well, here's the thing. My parents didn't like the television of the 80s. I mean, fair. I wanted to watch Three's Company. They did not want me to watch Three's Company. And so instead, they would always put on these old movies, specifically musicals, but this one as well, sometimes not musicals, and that would be Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. And so this story here is translated from the Russian by Richard Pivir and Larissa Volonkonsky, and it was published in Italy in 1957 because it was refused publication in the Soviet Union. And in 1958, Pasternak won the Nobel Prize for Literature. The Soviet Union would not allow Pasternak to collect his award. Instead, they threatened him with arrest and threatened to send his mistress back to the Gulag. So this didn't actually get published in Russia in full until I think the late 1980s. Pasternak had already died in 1960, and then in 1989, Pasternak's son was allowed to collect his father's Nobel Prize. So this is a sweeping historical novel set during the Russian Revolution and its aftermath. We're following Yuri Zhivago, a physician and a poet, as he struggles to maintain his personal integrity and his love for Lara, a woman he cannot be with. Amidst the chaos of war and upheaval, this explores love, loneliness, disillusionment with revolutionary ideology, and the conflict of individual freedoms and oppressive ideology. The 1965 film is the most famous adaptation, and that is the one that I watched as a kid. You have Omar Sharif as Zhivago and Julie Christie as Lara, and it contains a very famous score, including Lara's theme. I used to watch this on VHS repeatedly when I was younger. And never did it occur to me that there was a book, and pretty big one at that. I don't know how faithful the film is to the book. I haven't read it yet, and I'm sure that my love for the film will likely color my reading of this book. So the last book from my favorite childhood movies is Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. And so this teeny little novella was published in 1958, and we are following a young writer and his fascination with his neighbor, Holly Golightly. Holly is an eccentric and charming New York socialite. She lives a carefree life funded by wealthy admirers, yet she dreams about finding a place where she truly belongs, and that is symbolized by the luxury of Tiffany's jewelry store. As the unnamed narrator gets more involved with Holly, he uncovers her vulnerability behind her glamorous facade. So the film is from 1961, and it stars Audrey Hepburn. Need I say more? I mean, who does not love an Audrey Hepburn movie? And she is just absolutely stunning. Stunning in this film. The classic image of Hepburn in the black dress with the pearls, standing in front of Tiffany's with her coffee cup and the croissant. I mean, just classic. And the scene in the rain with the cat. I mean, fantastic. Yes, there is one aspect of the film that has not aged well, and it is Mickey Rooney playing the Japanese landlord. So that is one downside of the film. So Capote actually wrote this with Marilyn Monroe in mind. And from what I understand, he was actually really mad that Marilyn Monroe wasn't cast. Marilyn Monroe turned it down, and then it was offered to, I think, Shirley MacLaine, and then Shirley MacLaine turned it down. And Capote was not happy with Audrey Hepburn. But honestly, it just would have been a completely different film, but not necessarily in a bad way, but different if it was Marilyn versus Audrey Hepburn. And maybe I wouldn't have loved it as much. So I know I'll be able to read this. I mean, it's a tiny little thing, so I'm looking forward to see how it stacks up. All right, so let's move on to the movies that I enjoyed as adults that I did not know were based on books. And the first one would be The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this was published in 1989, and it won the Booker Prize the same year. Ishiguro also won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2017. And so in this book, we are following Stevens, who is an aged butler in post-World War II England, as he takes a road trip and looks back on his decades of loyal service to Lord Darlington of Darlington Hall. And Lord Darlington was a once respected aristocrat, later discredited for his Nazi sympathies during the war. During the story, Stevens is recalling his professional pride and also his repressed feelings for the housekeeper at the time, Miss Kenton. He begins to question the cost of his unwavering loyalty and his emotional restraint. So this story explores themes of memory, regret, and lost opportunities. The film is from 1993 and produced by the fantastic Merchant Ivory team. I adore Merchant Ivory films, and I used to watch them all the time. I think they're due for a rewatch, but adore them. So we have Anthony Hopkins as Stevens and Emma Thompson as Miss Kenton. Both were nominated for Oscars for this film. Hopkins is just brilliant and so British and repressed. And Thompson is warm and playful and forthright. I mean, come on, Emma Thompson in the 90s for the win, okay? She was in everything. She was in Remains of the Day. She was in Howard's End, which was another Merchant Ivory film, I believe. She was in Sense and Sensibility. She was in Much Ado About Nothing. She's one of my favorite actresses. I can't think of anything that I've seen her in that I've disliked. So in the 90s, when I watched this, I would have probably been teenager bordering on adult and would not have known that this was based on a movie. And similar to Dr. Zhivago, I'm almost afraid to read it because the adaptation is just so perfect. Next, I have The End of the Affair by Graham Greene. So this was published in 1951, and it's set in London during and after World War II. We follow writer Maurice Bendrix. I can't remember if it's Maurice or Morris. It's spelled like Maurice, but sometimes I hear people saying Morris, so I can't recall. So let's just say Maurice Bendrix, who becomes obsessed with rekindling his affair with Sarah Miles, who is the wife of a civil servant. After Sarah and Maurice's relationship ends abruptly, he hires a private detective to find out why, and he is unprepared for the reason. This story explores themes of love, passion, jealousy, betrayal, and faith. The film is from 1999 and stars Ralph Fiennes as Bendrix, and Ralph Fiennes is just perfectly tortured in this film. He does a great tortured soul, doesn't he? And Julianne Moore as Sarah. I love Julianne Moore. Pretty much like Emma Thompson, I love her in everything. She also is brilliant at being the tortured soul, the tortured wife. And Stephen Ray plays Sarah's husband. The costumes are beautiful. The filming is beautiful. The score by Michael Nyman is beautiful, and I still listen to it to this day. Michael Nyman also did the score for Jane Campion's 1993 The Piano with Holly Hunter and Harvey Keitel. Fantastic movie. If you've never seen it, highly recommend. The score is absolutely stunning. I believe that there was a film from the 1950s that I'll need to check out with Deborah Kerr as Sarah. And so maybe I'll check out that movie as well. And it was only in the past couple of years that I discovered that the movie was based on a book and Graham Greene wrote it. And so this was only a recent acquisition and discovery for me. So I'm looking forward to checking it out and seeing how it stacks up against the film. Next, I have Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson. And this was published in 1938. And I have a lovely Persephone edition here. And this is set in 1930s London. And we are following Miss Guinevere Pettigrew, a struggling middle-aged governess who unexpectedly finds herself swept into the glamorous world of Delicia LaFosse, who is a lively nightclub singer. Over the course of a single day, Miss Pettigrew helps Delicia navigate her romantic entanglements while also experiencing joy, confidence, and her own transformation. It's a light-hearted story that explores second chances, friendship, and the unexpected turns that life can take. The film is from 2008. We have Frances McDormand as Miss Pettigrew, who is perfectly dour and shocked at all that Delicia does. Amy Adams as Delicia is ditzy and lovable in only that way that Amy Adams can do it. And Kieran Hines is also in this, and he's very, very dapper. I love me some Kieran Hines, specifically his rendition of Captain Wentworth from Persuasion from the 1990s. According to Wikipedia, Winifred Watson actually sold the rights to the movies in 1939, so shortly after it was published, and it was being developed as a musical with Billy Burke, and you would recognize Billy Burke from The Wizard of Oz. She played Glinda, the Good Witch. And unfortunately, as filming started, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and the movie was shelved. And so the rights were renewed again in the 1950s, but it was still never developed until 2008. This is a feel-good comfort movie for me, and I absolutely love it. I've never read this book. I didn't know it was based upon a book, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this book, even if I love the movie more. Okay, 2 more to go, and I'll get you out of here. Next is a very long engagement by Sebastien Japrisot. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was published in France in 1991, and it was translated into English in 1993 by Linda Coverdale. So this is set in France after World War I, and we are following Mathilde, a young woman who refuses to believe that her fiancé Manesh was killed in the trenches. So despite official reports, she launches a tireless investigation, uncovering the truth behind the fate of 5 soldiers, including Manesh, who were sentenced to death for deliberately maiming themselves so that they would be sent home. This story has romance, suspense, horrors of war, determination, and enduring love. So the French language film, which is what I watched, came out in 2004 with Audrey Tautou as Mathilde, and Marianne Cotillard and Jodie Foster are also in it. So if you didn't know that, Jodie Foster actually speaks fluent French, and she's been in many French movies. I loved Audrey Tautou ever since her role in Amélie, and that is likely why I located and watched the film, because I loved Amélie so much. And this movie has the same director as Amélie, so not surprised that I enjoyed the movie. It's visually stunning, and it's touching as a love story, yet harrowing as a war story. So it's not going to be overly sentimental, focusing only on, the enduring love of this young woman looking for her supposedly dead fiance. It's not going to be super sweet at all. I hadn't realized it was based on a book. And so this is also a recent discovery for me. And last, I have Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. And this was published in 1989 in Mexico. And the English translation published in 1992 by Carol and Thomas Christensen. This is a magical realist story set in early 1900s Mexico, and we are following Tita, a young woman forbidden to marry because of family tradition that the youngest daughter must care for her mother. Sorry for the glare there. Try to get that. Well, I don't know if that's going to work. So Tita is in love with Pedro, who ends up marrying Tita's sister instead, for the reason of, well, if I marry the sister, I'll be able to stay close to Tita. Yeah, that doesn't work out well. Anyway, Tita expresses her emotions through cooking, with her magical dishes affecting those who eat them. So this explores themes of love, family, duty, and the power of food. The Spanish language film came out in 1992, so I would have watched it in the late 90s when I was, late teenager, early adult, and I honestly can't remember how I came across it. No idea. I just remember it being beautifully filmed and so sensual, very much like a soap opera. None of the actors were at the time or now are familiar to me. So all I can say is I do recommend the movie because it is just visually stunning. And like I said, I had no idea in the 90s when I watched it that it was based on a book. And so when I saw this, I grabbed it, and I believe this actually has recipes in it. So I'll have to check that out. So that is all I have for you today. 10 books where the movie made me buy it. I loved the movie so much that I wanted to go to the source material. Have you read any of these? Let me know. I would love to hear from you. And what are your favorite movies based upon books? I would love to hear that as well. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great day. Bye.